Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Redeemed Carnivore. I am here with Jordana. We are going to talk about oils, carnivore, the usual. Um, Thank you for coming to my channel and talking with me. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It's my pleasure.
Um, we'll get into let's start with the carnivore thing for a minute. I saw on your Instagram to where you've been eating carnivore. How long have you been in the carnivore uh lifestyle?
Well, I guess it was about a year ago. It was April or March of 21 that I heard about it, read a little bit about it. I had a friend who was trying it, whatever. We did sort of a challenge together, and I
Right.
really, really liked it. Since then, I kind of flex in and out of it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not strict carnivore, but I'm definitely protein forward. And there
Right.
are periods of time when I'll go back to it for healing and for, just sometimes for mental uh sanity, just
Right.
to kind of right.
Yeah. I was talking with I've talked with Brett, Thankful Dot Carnivore. He wants me to make sure I do the dot. And I was talking with him and we were I'm doing a series called Mental Health Monday.
Mm.
And he was talking about that in his story, he's done carnivore for mental health reasons because it just really clears up the brain fog. Um, have you noticed that it has an effect like that for you?
That's a great question. I've talked to several people who have a similar experience. Mine isn't so much an actual brain fog as much as when I'm following more of a carnivore diet, my actual, what's the word, mental energy
Yeah,
isn't so exhausted. And I have more mental margin
right.
to handle the stresses
Right.
of life and anxiety, and to just kind of think more clearly. So I guess it is brain fog. Maybe it's just a semantics, but yeah.
um that was for me. One of the reasons I went carnivore was for my gut health. I've had poor gut health all my life, and it just really got to a point to where I'm like, I can't, everything is starting to hurt. So for a lot of people, the carnivore diet is like an elimination diet, which I've been on it strict carnivore for 2 years. And I have really noticed a difference. Now, when you were strict carnivore, did you do it for gut health or for, you know, just general well being?
I think it was weight loss. That was my main
Right.
goal. Um, Although in the past I have struggled with SIBO, with various gut health issues, and you're right, carnivore is the most extreme version of an elimination diet, and
Right.
doctors that don't even necessarily recommend carnivore will put people on a carnivore diet who have those issues.
Right.
So it was a second, for sure, secondary, but almost first place reason
Right.
to try it. Yeah.
Now you mentioned doctors. Did your doctor recommend the carnivore? Because I know mine are like, your cholesterol is 500. You need to be on statins. You need to get off meat.
Right. No. So my current doctor right now, I really love. He is a functional medicine doctor,
Yeah,
so insurance doesn't cover it. Um,
of course not.
he does not necessarily recommend the carnivore diet, but he's not against it. Like I've told him, I took what he gave me, his recommendations, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this though. And
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
well, and he sees, so I have an autoimmune disease, also Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And for the first time in my adult life, all of the inflammatory markers are within normal range. And that
Wow.
is remarkable by any it's just remarkable. And so he's kind of like, okay, well, this goes against what I know, but it's working, so keep doing it. You know, he's not necessarily against it. The doctor I listen to a lot, I listen to Will Cole a lot, his podcasts and stuff like that. And just anyway, so that's who I was thinking of when I think of doctor. But yeah, you're right. The average primary care physician will not recommend it or even like be okay with it. So yeah.
Yeah, all of my doctors. In fact, I had one doctor, and I've mentioned this before on my channel. I had one doctor, she absolutely harassed me, and I'm talking harassed. She called me 3 or 4 times in a week, says, your total cholesterol is, at the time, it was like 300, now it's 500. And I'm like, whatever, I'm still living, I'm still breathing. But she's like, you need to be on statins or whatever. And I'm like, I refuse to be on a statin. She says, well, I'm gonna put it in your chart. I'm like, okay, you put that in my chart that I refused, because I will absolutely agree to that. And I said, there's too many side effects. My dad is on a statin. He can't hardly move around without being so sore. He has no energy. You know, I'm like, I've seen the results of that. No.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. About 15 years ago, when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, they put me on a statin and my cholesterol wasn't even bad. It was within normal ranges, but because you have type 2 diabetes, they're like, you're going to have bad cholesterol. And they put me on a statin. And at the time, I had no idea I was like, all right, the doctor told me to take this medicine. Let me take this medicine. And then I want to say, thankfully, it was maybe about 3 to 4 months later. And I was kind of like, wait a second, why? And I just decided myself to stop taking it at that point. Yeah, anyway, so this is Pharmaville, right?
Oh yeah, big pharma controls everything. And you know, I had been talking to several people about that as well. It's like, you know, your body knows how to heal itself. Yes, there may be autoimmune issues. You know, I've basically diagnosed myself with hypothyroid because I've got every one of the symptoms, but my lab work, according to the endocrinologist that I don't like, she says, well, you're within normal range. I'm like, okay, I may be within normal range, but why do I have every one of the symptoms in your little plastic thing you've got sitting on your desk? Every one of them. And to me, that is now, no, you're right. I can't afford a functional medicine doctor right now. I was looking at one real hard, and we were trying to make it work with the money situation, but it wasn't, because I would prefer to go to a functional medicine doctor because they're a little bit more open with, like, say, using oils, or with eating carnivore, or, you know, going the more natural route, which is what I prefer to do.
Right. The root cause.
Right. Instead of, like, the doctors, they want to just give you a pill and say, okay, here's a pill. Well, then months later, you've got side effects from the pill. Oh, well, here's another pill.
Yep.
No, you know, it's crazy to me. I was telling Brett that my granddaughter was diagnosed with ADHD and ODD. And I told my daughter, I said, I can guarantee you her attitude and everything will change if you get her off of the processed foods and you get her onto a carnivore diet. You know, and I'm trying, you know, to educate, but it's difficult when you've got big pharma and you've got the FDA and all these other people that are sitting there going, oh, well, just eat in moderation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and it's hard because I teach in an elementary school and I see it all the time. You know, there's this like darker skin around my neck, and that has been that way since I was very young. I remember at least 3rd grade, if not earlier, getting made fun of for it or whatever. And at the time, I remember my parents took me to the doctor and I asked them about it. I think I asked the doctor myself as a kid, like, do I need to scrub it? Is it dirt? You know, what is it? And it's got, I'm blanking, of course, now on the technical name. It's like, nigricans. Anyway, it's basically blackening of the skin.
Mm-hmm.
Latin term for that. But it is an early sign of insulin resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go back to that moment, and I try not to dwell, but I go back to that moment, just like if I can, and so I see kids with this darkening of the skin, and it's more prominent in Hispanic and African American populations. And I just, so badly want to say, just stop eating so much sugar. And it's not even, it's hard. It's very frustrating.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And I would even, if it was me, I try to tell, I'll tell kids straight up, like I do lunch duty, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this plate they have that is literally carbs with carbs with carbs with carbs. Some days there are not even any protein on the plate.
Right.
None. Not even plant protein. And I'm just like, and then they're drinking chocolate milk and they're allowed to buy ice cream and chips on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I say what I can as much as I can. But it's one of those things that, unfortunately, like a lot of kind of recoveries, people have to get to their own rock bottom, and it's hard to watch, but it's like a lot of things. You can tell someone all day, like, this is what's great, blah, blah, blah. But when it's all said and done, you just have to stick to your story. And that is that this is what this has done for me. And that's all I can really say. And no one can argue with that. You know what I mean? No one can say you don't feel 1,000 times better, And so, but it is hard, and it's really hard when it's loved ones. I relate to that.
Yeah. My family is not, they thought I was crazy, because I started this journey like 7 years ago when I broke my ankle, and I had an epiphany moment. My husband, because I was so overweight, my husband could not pick me up when I sprained one and broke the other one. So he couldn't pick me up because I was at that moment, I think I was 262, and I think actually I had lost a little bit of weight, but I mean, I had been overweight my whole life. But it was an epiphany moment for me. It was like I couldn't even push myself up the stairs, because we were staying at a friend's house and our bedroom was upstairs. I had to get up the stairs, and it was like, you know what, something's got to be done. And that was the beginning of mine. But now mine also is, I have addiction. It was alcohol, and then it turned into sugar, which is the same thing. I just replaced one with the other, and it's the same. Alcohol and carbs and sugar go hand in hand. So, and my family thinks that I'm crazy because I eat nothing but meat. I did go carnivore, keto, kind of deal. And I just found out that all of the dairy, which I'm allergic to dairy, all of the dairy and the vegetables on the keto, I can't handle. I just, my gut probably could now, being carnivore strict for 2 years, but I enjoy eating this way, to be perfectly honest. I'm eating new foods now, like heart and tongue, which is really good, y'all. Once you figure out how to cook it. Let me say that. Once you figure out how to cook it, that tongue was still a little tough, but the heart, oh my word. But so anyhow, but no, my family thinks that I'm crazy because of the way I eat. I take my food everywhere I go, just so I don't have to worry about not being able to eat or anything. But I'm trying to show them with the oxalates and all the stuff in the foods. And of course, our food industry now, is nothing like it used to be. You know, even if you're carnivore or even if you're keto and you're trying to eat clean, our foods are so processed anyhow and filled with pesticides that, you know, it's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, well, and then you add on the fact the whole seed oils thing, and it's just, it's really ridiculous. And, you know, it's interesting. A minute ago, you mentioned moderation. And the first thought I had in my head was like, well, if we could really actually truly eat sugar in moderation, like, for example, back in the day, we'll say, I don't know, we'll say 1,000 years ago, you know, you would have berries when they were in season. You would have, you know, certain fruits and certain things when they were in season. But even
Right.
then, you wouldn't have them daily. You wouldn't have them every meal.
Right.
It would be once in a while. You know, that's actually moderation. But
Right.
what people now know as moderation is, oh my gosh, speaking of endocrinologists, when I first saw this last endocrinologist I had, they were suggesting, what was it, between 45 and 60 carbs per meal. And this was what they suggested to a type 2 diabetic. At that point, I was still, I was probably about 380 pounds. My highest weight, I was about 420. So I had lost a little bit of weight, but I was having really bad issues with gastroparesis, which is another type 2
Right.
diabetes side effect. The nerve is just eroding. And so he's like, oh, yeah, go on 1,200 calories a day. No big deal, whatever. And it was like, okay, you clearly never talked to anyone who has food addiction.
Right.
And it was so ridiculous. And he was saying, like I said, in that 1,200 calories a day, the recommendation was 45 carbs per meal. And I was floored by that. And anyway, fast forward, the first follow-up visit I had like 2-3 months later, I saw his PA, and I was at the very last appointment of the day, and I had the glucose monitor, so she was able to download like my, you know, the graphs and all that stuff. And she was just like amazed. She was like, oh my gosh, you're the first patient I've seen all day that has had no high glucose events. I actually had a couple of low glucose events because I was still on more oral meds then, and you know, my sugar was, I was becoming insulin
Right.
sensitive, and it was great. And she's like, and you've lost weight, and da da da, all these great things, and this is just a great way to end the day because everyone else, you know, blah, blah. And I was like, and at that point, she had me writing on a chart like literally every single thing on a piece of paper I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
So she's looking at it, and she's like, oh, and I can see in her face, she's realizing I'm not doing what they're telling me to do. I'm doing, you know, basically keto, but really clean keto, not
Right.
dirty keto. Anyway, and she kind of commented something to the effect of like, wow, this is a lot of meat or something like that, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but she still didn't connect. Still didn't connect that here's this patient who is, you know, yeah, A1C is getting better, fasting glucose is getting better, losing weight, feeling better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Unlike all the other patients. And she's not eating the diet we're giving her. Like there
Right.
was never the connection.
Right.
And it was kind of like, do I point it out? No, because there's no, you know what I mean? It was just like, well, there it is right in front of you. And if you can't read that, then, you know, that's
Right.
whatever. So
Here,
I don't see the endocrinologist anymore. I just, my primary and the functional med do my blood work and handle the autoimmune
right.
stuff. So yeah.
Well, I got referred to an endocrinologist because I was trying to tell my regular doctor, and she's the kind that she just wants to refer you out to everybody. She doesn't really want to do anything. And she says, well, I'll send you to an endocrinologist and they can, because I do have nodules on my thyroid. They did find those. And I'm like, okay, I have nodules on my thyroid. Are y'all going to biopsy them or something? She goes, they're too small. I'm like, I used to be a medical assistant and I used to be a mobile phlebotomist. I know how small needles are. You can't biopsy this.
Right.
Which not that I'm afraid that there's anything wrong with it, but it's like, okay, let's biopsy just to make absolutely sure.
Right.
No, like, well, we'll do another sonogram in a year. What they want is they want me to have an enlarged thyroid, or they want me to have thyroid issues so bad that they have to remove it. And then I'm on medicine for the rest of my life. That's what they really want. Because right now I'm not making them any money.
Yeah. Well, and because when it's in those beginning stages, you can still reverse some things. You can still, your body can still do some healing. But yeah, I'm tracking with you. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. I had a sister-in-law that, or I have a sister-in-law. She told me about a friend of hers that she was having thyroid issues and, you know, yada, yada. And she was tired of all this. And so she just told the doctor, she said, well, just remove it. The doctor did. Now that was the crazy part. The doctor did. Now she's on medicine for the rest of her life. She said, well, I feel great. And I tried to explain to my sister-in-law, I said, who has hyperthyroidism. And I said, what she doesn't understand is, yes, your body can handle that medicine for a little while, but then after a while, you're going to have to keep changing medicines because your body is going to adapt to it and it's not going to work anymore. What's going to happen when you run out of medicines to try? Or what happens if you have so many side effects from the medicine? It's like, y'all ain't taking my thyroid out. I'm keeping it. Thank you.
Right. You know, there's a bigger picture thing that happens in American society. It started, I don't know, I guess really with the Industrial Revolution, you know, the turn of the 19th century and or the 20th century rather. But that whole idea of if it's broken, cut it out. Like if it's messed up, get rid of it. If it's, and you know, really ramped up with the 50s and 60s. And then the 80s, of course, were the ultimate, like everything's synthesized, everything's fake, everything, and this whole removal from self. And you know, I was thinking this morning, I was just kind of like praying and thinking, like, you know, God, what do you want to say through me? And one of the things was being present. Like even in this interview right now, in this Zoom right now, as I'm sitting here pre-recovery, it was every single bit of energy I could just to be in my chair, just to exist and be present for the conversation, because there was so much else going on. But that was what the norm was to be removed from your actual self, because something outside of you, whether it was medicine or surgery or something else, was better and was more ideal somehow. And so it's this whole overarching idea and theme in American society and Western society, and now in other places of the world too, of like, if it's messed up, cut it out. And that it goes for people too, right? Like if someone is difficult, just get rid of them. You know, it's this whole idea, and it's so sad because that's not at all what was ever intended. You know, if a relationship is broken, you're going to have to work on it and fix it. And of course, there are exceptions, you know, in abuse situations and other situations when it's better to, you know, but in general, you know, yeah. And it's crazy because you see it everywhere.
You know, you say that, and what's funny is I always do that with my channel. It's like, all right, you know, I don't script anything. This is, you know, what we talk about is what we talk about. And I try to get, you know, things across to people and try to, you know, give help from what I know. And I'm also transparent as well. You know, I'm like an open book. You know, I don't hide anything. And my dad, who is a narcissist, and he lives with me, and the relationship is very, very difficult. And I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and Lord have mercy, she gave me some truths, and I know that she was told to say it, and I know I needed to hear it. But she's like, you need to work on that demon because before it's too late, because when it's too late, you're going to regret it. And then she said to me the next day, she's like, I was thinking about what I said to you, and that was kind of rough. And I was like, it was, but, and I walk every morning, and that's my time to pray and to, really just kind of get my day started. And it really kind of hit me. And because, we kind of joked around like, he's getting older and he requires more assistance. And we were joking about it. It's like, if you don't joke about it, you're just going to go nuts. And, but you're right, working on the relationship, even as difficult as it is. And this could be family member, this could be friend, this could be co-worker, because we all have to interact with each other. But you're absolutely right, because if we don't face that demon, and because Satan will use people to get to you, mine is downstairs, but then if you don't work on that, and if you don't, as I always say in my channel, put your armor on, because Ephesians 6 is I love talking about the armor and I love studying about it. But if you don't put it on every single day when you get up, then, and you have a target on your back, he will use those relationships to get to you and to wound you. And some of those wounds, if you let it go, it's going to take root and it's going to fester. And that's what I've allowed to happen. Again, I'm just honest and transparent. That's what I've allowed to happen in my relationship with him. I've allowed it to fester. I've allowed it to take root. And my daughter was reminding me, and even you just saying that was reminding me, hey, we need to work on relationships.
Yeah, which really, I relate to that. Which really is starting here, right? It's starting with yourself. And like, it's interesting because that same thing that the enemy wants to use to, feed resentment and bitterness and things like that, when you have your armor on, when you have the helmet of truth on, the truth is that God has put him in your life, and God can use it as a sandpaper, right? To get out your rough edges, right, and whatever. But if you don't have that truth in your mind when you're, even just normal interactions, and I relate. My elderly mother lives with me and my husband, and so daily there are reminders of take a deep breath. I have to be okay that she's not okay. And I have to be, not have to, but I need to accept that, there are things that are changing and whatever, all the different dynamics of that. But yeah, going into it, like you said, with your armor on is huge. And the first thing that popped in my head was the helmet of truth, of like reminding your mind of the truth that and that is that they're a child of God too. They're his too. He loves them too, and into those interactions with that truth is huge.
Right. It is, and like I said, that's the difficult part. But, when we have God in our lives, and, because I've told God, walking down the road, I'm like, God, you're going to have to help me, because I've got this and I've got to get rid of it. I can't do this on my own. You're going to have to do it for me. You're going to have to go in front of me and show me how to do this, because this is very difficult for me. My mother passed away 4 years ago, and that has been difficult. Plus, on the top of, he's got medical issues, and now I'm having to be caregiver, and it's like all that. It's like, okay, God, I need your help. That, and I some days I'm just like, dear Lord, and I go and roll oils all over me, and go, okay, or on it with an oil, and breathe deep.
Absolutely. And for me, a big piece of one of the things that I like to share on Instagram and on my Facebook too is the recovery process. And I started my recovery for binge eating, disordered eating, et cetera, et cetera. But as I stayed, there were other things actually that were even bigger. Alligators. We always say, what's the alligator closest to your boat, right? Because everybody has multiple issues, but what's the thing that's like the most urgent? And it's been interesting because it's a 12-step program. It's called Celebrate Recovery, and it's actually a 12-step, but it's Christ-based. It's right. Jesus is your higher power. Anyway, so through that process of like finding, at first it was really frustrating because it'd be like, oh, another issue, another, oh, right. Now I have to deal with codependency too. Now I have to deal with anger too. Right. Now I have to, but then it was this beautiful moment of like, yeah, I'll always be in recovery. And that's great because it's me saying, God, like you just said, God, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm completely, and stepping out of denial, the very first step, of admitting that we're powerless over our addictions and tendencies. And it's not until that moment that he can start to change you, And so at first it was like, oh, another thing. And now it's like, thank you, God, for showing me another thing that I can surrender to you, because now you can fix it. You can change it. You can heal it. You remove that character defect. And it's just it's countercultural because our culture says, don't admit anything wrong, put on a good face, hustle, be strong, whatever message is out there. And it's very counter culture to say, I can't do it. I'm powerless. Yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right. And, with recovery and, it's like you've never arrived. You've never, I've got it all together, because you never will until we go from this earth until heaven. We will not have it all together. We will not be with it or whatever you want to say. And I have to look at that sometimes, because it's like, well, why can't I just get it together? Or why can I, I'm next week I will be 50 years old, and I look back at my life and go, okay, 50, you've had 50 years. What have you done? What have you accomplished? And then you have to look and go, look at what I'm doing. Look at how I'm hoping to help people in my 50 years of going through this. Mm-hmm. Look now how God is using this, and doing all of this. And I'm grateful for that. And I have to stop a lot of times and go, okay, look what God has done through me. Look how much I've accomplished. I am grateful for what yes, I've got a long road ahead of me. But when I look back just for a second, go, wow, okay, yeah. And that's how I think that our gratitude and our, being, if some people say, well, I'm blessed. Okay. Yes, you are. And with your gratitude and, just being present, as you said at the beginning, just being present.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody just this last week was telling me, God wants us to look up. He wants us to keep our eyes on him, keep our eyes on the prize, the word says. But I had never heard it quite this way. She was saying that when you're looking down, you're looking like, inward, that's depression. Or no, excuse me, that's anxiety. You're looking like, what's the next step, right? Looking backwards is depression, like the past regrets, things neither of those things you can do anything about. You can't do anything about the future. You can't do anything about the past. And then this is the part that was new to me. Looking to the side is the comparison, and looking at, well, this person, like in your case, this person is the same age, but they've done this, or, this person has been doing their thing a little bit longer, comparison. But again, that's not where he ever told us to look. Right. And Just it robs us of the joy of our salvation, of the joy of being with him, of keeping our eyes on him. That was just a really beautiful. I'm very visual, so anything that I can like visualize, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can. That clicks with me, you know.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I'm gonna have to remember that one because I'm a visual person as well. Well, Jordana, thank you. We're running out of time. Zoom will kick me off. Thanks, Zoom. But thank you very much for coming on my channel and talking. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. I'm honored, and it's been a pleasure.
Y'all check her out on Instagram. She's got some really good stuff on Instagram. Now your Instagram is
Jordana Sings.
okay.
So it's my name, Jordana Sings. Jordana Sings.
And I love that. I like that. I like that. Well, thank you very much, y'all. Thank you for joining us. Check her Instagram out, and I will check with y'all later. I'm going to be doing a series starting this coming Monday. It's called Mental Health Mondays, and I'm hoping to do that every Monday. But go check her out, and we will talk to y'all later.